The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this rather interesting edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and on tonight's show we are joined as always by the lovely Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm fully recovered from my experiences last week.
Thank goodness for that. I thought we nearly lost you there for a moment. A little worrying.
A minute ago, I thought I was going to have a long time off.
I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to do the Tuesday night show by myself every week. Totally selfish.
Oh, it certainly felt like that, I'll tell you.
Well, at least you're all okay, you know, because that was quite worrying for a while there.
Yeah, it was a bit, but I know I'm fine now and back to normal. Well, as normal as I can ever be.
Questionable.
It's it, I suppose. So what have you been up to? Anything exciting?
Not a lot, really. I've started Friday's research today, and obviously I've been looking into tonight's topic. And apart from that, I'm reading about Dr. Alex Tannis at the moment. Dr. Cal Cooper has co-written this book. So I'm reading that one. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm reading that at the moment.
Oh, that interesting.
No, it is. It's absolutely fascinating, actually.
Are you going to talk about it on the show?
Am I going to talk about it on a show?
Yeah, do a show on it.
Maybe. We shall see. But it is fascinating.
Awesome. Any paranormal adventures that you've been having?
Went to Coalhouse Fort with you guys on Saturday night. That's you and Richard, obviously. Had fun on the swings.
I noticed the fun on the swings. I've seen the photographs.
I know. I had fun.
It was an interesting night.
After moaning and groaning, oh no, you're not going on the park. Went on the park, had a great time.
I can imagine, yeah. I bet your kid was left out and while you was playing on the swings.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like, get out the way, child. I'm on the swing. But yeah, it's all good.
Me stuff. Awesome. Right, so tonight's subject, we're going to be talking about vanishing corpses.
Mm-hmm.
This is a subject I know you brought to the table after going out for one of your jaunts to the theatre, believe it or not.
Yeah, right. I went to see Evita.
Do you want to enlighten everybody?
Yeah, I went to see Evita, and it was a really good production, considering it was amateur dramatics. But the director had put a few bits in about the, post history of Eva Peron that I didn't know, and one was that her corpse had gone missing. And like when your ears prick up. I went because Evita, I love the, but I'm just watching it like I would a TV show because it's like, But then the minute he said like her body went missing, kind of my ears pricked up. I was like, oh, didn't know that.
I can imagine it was like a meerkat. You see the whole audience sitting there watching him, and then he says that, and just you pop up. It's like meerkat. Like, what was that?
Yeah, it kind of was like that. And so we went to the pub after the theatre, and I've got them all Googling, all the people I went with, I've got them Googling this about Eva Peron, and it just triggered a thought pattern. I thought,
So
How
we've had a
often
team
does
of
this
researchers.
happen?
So we've had a team of researchers working on this show then tonight, have we?
Well, we could kind of say that. We could kind of say that.
Okay, so you found lots of information about it then.
Well, I found a lot of information because we said we're going to talk about vanishing corpses because as we got talking one night when we were discussing this topic,
Yeah.
with Richard one night, we kind of came up with a few more, didn't we?
We did. There was quite a few, wasn't there? And we're going to be talking about those later in the show.
Yeah.
But I know you said like you was doing your research, and a lot of gaming stuff came up.
Yeah, that was funny. I put vanishing corpses in as a search engine, and it was all gaming. And I'm like, like when you sit there and you're like confused, and I'm like, why? Well, apparently this is a really big thing in the gaming world that like if you kill something, you can grab stuff off them, but then their corpse will disappear. But you have to grab before they disappear, and people's corpses were disappearing before they could grab their stuff.
Especially in the live online games when you're running around playing things like Call of Duty or Fortnite even, and you get shot and your corpse disappears because you're respawning somewhere else. Your kit is still left where your corpse fell. So whoever shot you can then nix all your guns and weapons and stuff. It's so irritating.
So this is apparently a big problem in the gaming world, everybody. All right, who knew? Right, who knew that?
Absolutely. And then you stumbled upon a screenplay or something, didn't you?
Yeah. Now, the screenplay itself is called The Corpse Vanishes. It's actually written by Wallace Fox, but the reason this hit out to me was because it had Bela Lugosi in it. Now, Bela Lugosi these days, we kind of know him as like the horror, the ultimate Dracula. And that's really where he hit his fame point, was playing Count Dracula. So he has this sort of like horror, I thought it was quite a good link, really, because of who he is. Because his mirror is in Zach Bagans' museum, as we know. Or is it? Or is it? Because looking at some of the information that's been released of people that have researched this, so check out the Skeptical Inquirer if you want to know more about the Bela Lugosi mirror. Because that is a really well-researched document that person has done. And basically, I don't think it is. It's not actually Bela Lugosi. It doesn't make sense. But himself as a character is quite a fascinating little character. And he was actually buried in a Dracula costume.
That'd be a good one for the archaeologists millions of years from now, wouldn't it?
We found a real-life Dracula. We found him. Vlad the Impaler is actually buried here. He's buried in a Dracula costume. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably not far from the truth.
In a car park under the big letter D, maybe.
Probably. Exactly.
Yeah. Ironically. But yeah, apparently the mirror's supposed to be in Zach Bagans' museum. Is that the one that Carl has visited?
Yeah. And they're going
maybe
back.
Confirm that.
Well, if we can get him past the first 7 rooms this time he goes, to be fair, because we all know what happened last time he went. He didn't get 7 rooms in. But Sam has seen the mirror. But, yeah. She's seen the mirror. Okay. She didn't give me any feedback on it. But, I say, read the Skeptical Inquirer if you're interested in this, because there's a lot of research being done on the supposed Bela Lugosi haunted mirror.
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, I don't know if you must have seen it on Facebook and other socials, the story about 20th of September, everyone's going to be storming Area 51, like 2 million people. I reckon if they've got alien technology in this Area 51, in about 2 seconds, 2 million people are going to be going missing that night.
Natural selection at its best. Modern day natural selection. Really, folks? Really? I mean, I have to say, Area 51 has got so much conspiracy and rumour around it. I can kind of get why they want to. But logically, there's going to be sod all there. Because even if there was, they've had pre-warning to remove it. The best thing the government could do, actually, I said this the other night, the best thing the government could do is actually, right, empty it, like completely empty it, right? And then on the day when all these thousands of people, because you can guarantee there's going to be still a lot of people turn up for this because they're stupid.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
The fact that the government are saying we're going to use guns on you, the Air Force is going to be called out, the National Guard is going to be called out. This is not deterring people. They're going, we are more of us than them kind of scenario. It's all very silly. It's all very silly. But the best thing the government can do is not actually make a fuss. Just empty it quietly, right? Yep. And then let them storm Area 51 on that day, and they'll find nothing. They're not going to find anything anyway.
I think, to be fair, I mean, even assuming there is anything there of top security secrecy, that as soon as Area 51 became quite commonly well known, they would have moved all the top secret stuff out of it anyway. It's
all stars and moonbeams.
Yeah.
Or smoke and mirrors, as my lovely Cole Hutchinsons would say. It's all he said, she said, this happened, that happened. No verified actual factual evidence on the table. It's all witness statement or alleged witness statement.
Well, I would find it absolutely hilarious if they were just the 2 million people were wiped out in a second.
Well, that would be mildly humorous. Inappropriate humour moment.
The whole attitude of there's 2 million of us, there's more of us than them, we can do this. They're gone within a flick.
It is an inappropriate humour moment because, like, at the end of the day, every government's allowed to have secrets, right? Or are they not? Are we saying that the governments aren't allowed to have secrets?
No, they've got to have some, haven't they? I mean, for the security of your country. They can't be telling everybody because otherwise it'd be opening up to spies, and as soon as one person knows... I mean, during the war we had, was it the slogan, loose lips sink ships or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Just give a shout out to the to the chat room because we've got Richard in there, Andy M is in there, and Carl, and he says he's going to storm it. He says he's going in October and he's going to go and do post-storming.
Live shot from the Area 51 storming.
That would be so funny.
I did actually message Sam the other day and said, like, are you going to be there at that particular time? And she said no. But if you're going to be there, live show, I think. Let's have a live show from there.
Well, there is supposed to be a live feed on the day that they storm it. There is somebody going to be live feeding it, apparently. And that's kind of how I'm going to watch it unfold if anything happens.
Yeah, but we could have presenters on Ground Zero.
We could, depending on what happens on that day. But it is an inappropriate humour moment with this one, I have to say. I am sitting back and watching it and chuckling away to myself.
It was set up as a joke initially anyway, so...
True.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to the Eva Peron.
Yes.
There's a name in it, so go for it.
Where this little journey all started. We all know Ava died of cancer. She had cervical cancer, and that's actually how she passed. And we also know the long journey it took to get her in office, that she's very poor, came from a very poor background, and basically worked her way up, shall we say.
She's a good singer as well.
Oh, she was an awesome singer from what I saw. One of my favourites, what I'm saying. Anyway, she died and left, obviously, Juan Perón as president. Now, he was disposed not long after she passed, but her body went missing because she became such a idol, and it's a bit like Princess Diana for us. She was such a force to be reckoned with, and they almost like sainted her. That's how they viewed her. It's almost like a saint. So the military actually removed her body out of public display and sort of like quietly got rid of it because she was seen as a symbol for Peronism. basically. And so there was still a lot of support for that. So when the military took over, they wanted to undermine that. So that's one of the reasons they actually got rid of her body. When I say got rid of, it was like she went on a bit of a road trip. They sort of shipped her here, there and everywhere. And it was like, it was only until basically post all of this, they wanted to bring Evita back to Argentina, that they got in touch with an embalmer who was asked to re-embalm or re-pretty her up for public display. So this is like years and years later after her body disappeared. So, and that's how it came out. But he was like, it's putting me in a dangerous position, because if I do this, it's against the government and the people that wanted to make the body disappear in the first place. So, you know, it was a bit of a one. But he said that when he found the body, she had sustained injuries post-death. Like her fingers had been removed. And they reckon that was for fingerprinting, so it proved that it was who it was. And her feet were absolutely battered beyond recognition, and that was because they said she'd been put in a coffin that was too small for her.
Okay, so they literally just rammed her into this coffin.
Basically, and also she sustained other injuries to her face and body, but he says she wasn't shot. Which is, there was a rumour that she'd been shot, but she wasn't. But it does look like she sustained injuries post-death, so her body was abused, basically post-death. But anyway, it was up to him to pretty her back up for public consumption. And when, I mean, she went from, oh gosh, dear me, she was put in the trade union HQ to start with when she first died, and there were thousands and thousands of people queuing up to view her body. After that, she was then taken to Italy and buried in Milan. Now, Joan Perron had remarried and was actually living in Spain at the time. He'd left the country and was living in Spain with his wife. And in 1971, they took the body from Milan, flew it to Spain, where it was actually on display. Like, I don't think it was actually like an open coffin. I think they had a tomb kind of thing for her.
Yeah.
But he had it in his own home. Now, in 1974, it was returned to Buenos Aires, which is where they then did the re-embalming for public display. So in 1974, she was put back on display after being, like, you know, prettied up. And but the crowds weren't there. The support wasn't there for her like it had been when she had died in the 1950s. So, which is hardly surprising. It was 20 odd years later. You know, it's a different generation of people, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's the fact
so
that her body just disappeared.
Do they know when it sort of disappeared?
I think 1955 was when they removed it, which was when Joan had been overthrown by the military.
So there's at least someone then out there that knows where their body was put.
Well, they knew where she was, but the general public didn't. So it kind of went missing in regards to the perception from the general public.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? So for a long time, it was classed as a missing body because the general people didn't know where she was. They just knew she wasn't there. And so for a long time, she was classed as a missing body. But the government, obviously, the military knew where she was. And it was only through pressure, through various public and political forums, that she actually got removed and taken back to Argentina. And then she's actually buried in the Recoleta Cemetery now.
Awesome. Well, at least I know where she is now.
But now you know where she is. So she was missing for a while.
Cool.
She was missing for a while.
Who else have we discovered went missing? Actually, I'll tell you what. She does look a bit like Madonna in that Evita movie, doesn't she? In those pictures.
Here's a little bit of pop trivia for you. When Madonna went for the role, Andrew Lloyd Webber was not going to consider her at all. He didn't think she had the vocal range to do the singing of the stage play. But Madonna actually got dressed up as Eva Perón when she went for the interview.
Yeah.
And she'd actually had singing lessons, because it's a different form of singing, to actually perfect her voice before she went into the interview with Andrew Lloyd Webber. And he said the minute he saw her dressed as Evita, singing one of his songs, he said he knew she'd be really good in the role. And I have to say, everybody, I think Madonna was stolen. The Oscar she was put up for that role, I think she should have got it. But then I am a Madonna fan, right?
Well, to be fair, I'm a bit of a Madonna fan, but I didn't watch the film. It's not something that I was ever been into. So it's sort of, well, I mean, when you mentioned it, it's like Evita. Oh yeah, I know the show, know the film, know that famous song she sang from the balcony, and that was about it. But looking at the pictures in your research, she does actually resemble her as well. That's quite spooky, really.
It's very spooky when you look at the pictures. Yeah. But she was viewed back in the day as very, she was like the liberator of Argentina. She really did capture the imagination and helped very much to get Joan Perón into power through her influence. She had that je ne sais quoi, shall we say. She had that special something that managed to unite people. She's a force to be reckoned with. She's an absolutely amazing woman, strong woman.
Mm.
Anyway, that's my little ode to Evita.
Yeah. Excellent, that's it. Right, so who else have we discovered that's disappeared? I think the next one was Amelia Earhart, wasn't it?
You can't talk about missing bodies without looking at this one, because this is fascinating. Not only the fact that she went missing, but the fact that they think, and it was put out in the media that they had solved this. But when you look into it deeper, when you go into a bit more depth into researching it, it's not as clear cut as that. And I don't like this one because someone's gone missing, obviously. But fascinating woman.
Absolutely, and she was wasn't she the first female aviator to cross the Pacific or something?
She was absolutely astonishing. God, the guts. Yeah, she was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, that sounds about right.
And the first person ever to fly solo from Hawaii to the United States mainland. So but that's not good enough for this lady. That wasn't good enough. She wanted to do the next thing. So she wanted to circumnavigate the globe. So she wanted to go around the globe, right? But she actually disappeared in 1937 somewhere over the Pacific. That's where I was going with that word. Oh, dear.
Yeah, and then quite a few years ago, when was it? When did they discover that stuff on the island? Like the bones and the shoes and stuff?
Oh, I don't know. No, 1940 was the first time they came across a little hint that she could be on this particular island. None of us are trying to say this name. I'm going to attempt it because it's just too funny. Nikumararuru. Does that sound about right?
That sounds absolutely spot on.
Okay, we'll go with that. We're just going to call it the island from now on. In 1940, a British party actually found a skull, a woman's shoe, and a navy tool. Because it was also Fred Noonan who disappeared as well, right, with her, and a bottle of herbal liqueur Benedictine, and all of these they associated with Amelia. So that's what they went on. Did. Okay, so those were the artefacts they found in 1940. However, they found 13 bones in total. But at that stage, you've got to remember forensics weren't like they are today. So the guy, Dr. Janst, studied the bones, but they say now he reached the wrong conclusion.
Yeah, they reckon that they
moved on. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The worst bit about it is they're going on Dr. Jantz's information because the bones have actually been lost.
Oh,
So
that's convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, so since then, they can't retest the bones because they're not available now to relook at. Now, this is the bit that's fascinating. I don't know how things go missing like this, right? So you've got somebody like Amelia Earhart, right? Her bones have gone missing. Then Belle, who put Belle in the witch elm, that skeleton of that lady was supposed to be somewhere and then it got lost. How? How do you just lose a skeleton? How do you lose one of those things? Do you know what I mean? Do you just look at it one day and go, nah, it doesn't go with the decor anymore, and just chuck it out?
Yeah, stick it in the attic and he goes for a walk.
Yeah, you know what I mean? How do you lose these things? But anyway, they did. They managed to lose the bones. And so they're only going on the information that Dr. Jantz provided at the time and then looking at modern technology to try and work out if it is definitely Amelia's.
Yeah. I do actually remember there was. This is going for Alien Link now. From Mark.
Oh no.
there was actually, to be honest, there was actually an episode of Star Trek Voyager that covered Amelia Earhart's disappearance, and their theory was that, like all good aliens do, they like to kidnap aliens, but they wanted to do it from different decades, and for this particular decade they choose 1937, hence the name of the episode called 37s. But then, yeah, they kidnapped Amelia Earhart and a few others from that decade, and they cryogenically froze them and collect them like like the old baseball cards, you know.
Oh
There you go. So yeah, Star Trek got it covered. This one.
Okay, not the direction I thought the show would go in.
So that's just a little alien link there for Mark.
And Kylie's in the chat room, so I'll be well happy with that too.
Yeah, we want to have something for everybody on this show. But yeah, if she did disappear, well, just crash into the sea, even she'd just be fish food, wouldn't she, by now?
You would think
so. She'd never be found.
The problem is, because the bones have been lost, they can only go on the information provided. So they are pretty 99% sure that it is Amelia. But without the bones for final definitive identification, they can't say 100%. But they are pretty sure that the bones were found were Amelia's. So we do think they do think they found her. But it's the same with anything. Until they have a piece of evidence that is like 100%, they won't 100% say it. So I'm pretty sure, but there's still that percentage that it might not be.
I mean, there's doubts over the fact that the bones are hers, for one. Then obviously you've got the shoes that are for female, but again, that could be something that was washed up there, so it doesn't conclude that it was actually hers. And wasn't it a bottle of drink as well that she was known to have?
Yeah.
I'm sure she's not the only woman on the planet or the only person on the planet to drink it. So again, that's something.
They've not found like a plane wreckage or anything. They've literally just found these artifacts and some bones. So they've not actually found the plane, which kind of would sort of signify it.
Exactly, and out of the 206 bones in your body, they only found 13 of them.
14.
So that doesn't. Okay, 14. That still doesn't conclude that it's hers.
No, and because of the information, the bones not being available, they won't do it. But it's pretty sorted, I'd say. Pretty sorted on that one.
Yeah, but she's still missing.
But, you know, there's still a huge conspiracy theory, as we've just outlined with the alien one, that, you know, surrounds that little one.
Yeah, anyway, moving on. The one name that I expect to see on your list of research was Genghis Khan.
I know. Who knew, right? I didn't know this.
No, so what did you find out on Genghis Khan?
Well, he died, obviously, but he asked to be buried in secret. he didn't want anybody to know where he was buried. So like his like army was like carrying his body home, they actually killed anybody they met, so no one knew the route they took. This is pretty. They are pretty brutal people, by the way, right? And then,
well, yeah, you just follow the line of dead bodies, then, don't you? Really?
Oh, I think they went that way. Oh my god!
So hands or breadcrumbs, isn't it?
Yeah, like we're just follow the dead blood, the blood stains on the floor. Yeah. But then when they did bury it, they finally laid him to rest, which is a secret, by the way. We don't know where he was laid to rest. There's lots of theories on this one. His soldiers rode 1,000 horses over his grave. Now, what's different about Genghis Khan is tombs out there tend to have, or the Mongolians tend to have, they don't do like gravestones like we have that stand upright. They lay like a square of blocks flat on the floor. That indicates a tomb, and then earth gets knocked over it, and it's quite difficult to locate these places of anybody. So to find one that hasn't got a capstone, as it were, and it's had 1,000 horses ride over it to destroy any evidence that anybody's buried there, it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. And because they've got no area specifically to look at, because again, as like I said, there are various theories on this one as to whereabouts he's buried, whether that's actually on the plains or whether that's in the mountains. It's all very conjectural. So yeah, and also the other thing is there's a curse. There's got to be a curse linked to this.
Oh, okay. That'd be the next spin-off to the Curse of Oak Island, wouldn't it?
The Curse of Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
The Mongolians themselves don't want these tombs to be found, right? Because there are alleged curses linked to various ones. Now, the curse with Genghis is that if it's ever found and discovered, that the world will end. So maybe they found it today.
Yeah, because apparently the world's ending today, according to the Daily Star.
Maybe they did find Genghis Khan's tomb today. Who knows? But this is...
I very much doubt
I very much doubt it too. But hey-ho. The problem is what had happened. There was a tomb of a Mongolian king in the 14th century. Now, his tomb was opened in 1941 by the Soviet archaeologists. Now, immediately after that, Nazi soldiers actually invaded the Soviet Union, and actually that was the point of launching the Eastern Front. So you can understand why the Mongolians are a little concerned about opening these kind of tombs. So the Mongolian people don't want any of these tombs disturbed in case it gets them into big trouble like it did last time. And so researchers are actually restricted from certain places. If they're sacred, they're not allowed to look. If they're, there is a lot of, we talk about the Egyptian sites being restricted. In Mongolia, it's worse.
Have they not even tried narrowing it down to where the tomb of Genghis Khan is?
As I say, there are various theories on this. There is folklore in the area that he is buried on a peak in the Kenti Mountains, and apparently it's called Birkenkolden. I don't know if I've said that right at all, but and he actually hid on that mountain when he was a young man. That he hid from his enemies actually on that mountain. So they wonder if it there is this folklore that it is on this mountain, and it is classed as a sacred mountain as well by the people. But if you then go on the other side of it, where the tomb was run over by 1,000 horses to hide it, would you do that on a mountaintop? That more indicates valley or desert, like the plains, doesn't it? But so there's sort of like this. You can't. Who knows, right? Mountaintop, 1,000 horses, doubtful.
It contradicts.
It kind of contradicts itself, yeah. So, when somebody, a professor who was actually looking at these kind of tombs was looking at it, he kind of said, like, doesn't mean he's buried there just because the folklore's there. you know, because the other stories don't add up to it. But they actually have no idea where he's buried.
Well, interesting.
Mm.
I'm sure one day we'll find him. Someone out there like Richard with his metal detector. Be like, oh, found him.
In Mongolia. We're like, no, don't dig that up. We're going to get killed by the Mongolians. On one of our many road trips that we get to when we go to Mongolia, because that's kind of not ever going to happen, right?
We'll get that one.
What, in Mongolia?
We've got a few trips planned to. We've got a few trips planned to France and stuff like that. So, you know, the more places we visit, the further and further afield we'll get. So you never know.
Oh, God.
Next year I'm planning a trip to Auschwitz.
You have a problem
the year
getting
after,
me out of Essex, let alone...
the year after, 2021, I'm going to Chernobyl for a holiday. Well, going to visit Chernobyl, obviously, but...
Well, we're going to be living that because we're going to be doing a show on dark tourism, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So you never know. We'll go further and further afield.
Yeah, you never
each
know.
time.
We might be the ones that discover Genghis Khan's too. Kind of doubt it, everybody, but hey.
Yeah. You know, walking along one day, you'll just trip over his foot or something.
Jeepers. The one interesting thing, though, that ties in with last week's show, which was Ancient Treasures, when they buried these kind of leaders, they were always buried with huge amounts of wealth and, you know, jewels and gems and swords and shields and stuff.
Yeah, it was like their attitude to take it with them.
Exactly. And they, you know, it's quite, for the archaeologist's point of view, it would be very interesting to them. But, yeah, the Mongolians are like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it, because, I mean, like, even with the Egyptians, they're quite protective over their dead kings and stuff.
I don't believe it's their heritage. We would like it if somebody from far away came over to ours, an archaeologist from, I don't know, from Russia came to England and started digging up Queen Elizabeth I. We wouldn't like that, would we?
No, absolutely not. But we didn't mind it when they discovered Richard III and dug him up.
Yeah, but I think they were ours, weren't they? Our people.
I don't know, but the body of Richard III was technically missing, when no one knew where he was.
That's true.
So there you go, another vanishing body that we found.
Yeah,
it just happened to be in a car park under the big letter R.
Didn't you tell me the other day they've got a statue there now?
Yeah, someone told me that they've got a statue there. So when we're up in Leicester next, we're going to go and pay a visit just to make sure that information's correct.
Show our respects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rich. Good old Richie.
Richard, you know.
Right, so let's talk about Hitler, right? Because Hitler is essentially a missing body. Now, we think we know what happened to him. We think that, obviously, when the Soviets stormed Berlin, that he took a way out that was basically arsenic poisoning, and then told one of his lackeys, as it were, one of his soldiers, to burn him and his wife, her body too. So we think, well, that's what the story is. And then they were buried in a really shallow shell crater to hide the evidence. But that's not been good enough, has it? That's not been good enough for a lot of people. There is huge...
Well,
You believe the conspiracy, don't you, on this one?
No, I don't. I think logically, and looking at some of the other archaeological digs that have been going on where they've discovered bodies of Germans and things like that, I actually think that he's buried somewhere in a shallow grave that no one will ever find. But it does give rise to the hollow earth theory, because apparently Hitler...
Where are you going with this?
No. Hitler was a great believer in all this sort of stuff. And he believed in some of these conspiracy theories, and he was into the whole religious artifacts like the Cup of Christ and all that sort of thing.
He wasn't. No. He wasn't per se. Hitler wasn't so much. It was one of his henchmen that was into all of that. And it was basically any way to help Hitler win the war.
Yeah, but they still looked for the stuff. Hitler gave permission for them to go and look for it. So he must have had some interest. Yeah? No?
I think he was just anything that will help us win the war. Go for it. If the Spear of Destiny is going to help us win the war, we'll go for it. If the Ark of the Covenant is... If there's any proof of that, if there is any actual proof of that, that could just be a huge black propaganda scenario.
Well,
They searched out all these kind of items that were supposed to have power, yet we still overcame them. They were still, good still overcame... I don't know, so I don't know the topic too well. But there is a whole conspiracy around the occult and the Nazis.
One of the conspiracy theories is that Hitler and his troops discovered an entrance way to the Hollow Earth. And apparently 2,000 scientists have also gone missing and never been accounted for.
I can account for that.
So they reckon that these 2,000 scientists and Hitler are living happily ever after
in the middle of the earth. No.
Yeah.
No, I can account for those scientists. They all had their name changed, went into the witness protection and went into America and started working for America or subsequent allied countries.
Well, I'm just playing devil's advocate. And just, that's one of the conspiracy theories that where Hitler appeared or disappeared to. Oh. So there you go.
Anyway, back to normal, sensible conversation without crazy
you never
theories.
know.
Well, you don't know. This is true. However, they did find a jawbone, and that has been kept by the Russian Secret Service since the 1940s. And French scientists were actually allowed to look at this, and they think it's him. They're pretty sure it's him.
What's the rest of him then?
I don't know. Apparently he got incinerated because he went on a bit of a road trip as well. Because when the Russians got their hands on what the remains of the body, they buried it. They took it away and buried it on a Russian-Soviet base. Then when the Berlin Wall came down, they were thinking, we're going to have to decommission this base because obviously we're giving Germany back, basically. And but we don't want anybody to know or find the remains. So they dug him up and they transported him to Russia, where he's now allegedly buried in Russia. But they didn't really want him on Russian soil because it's Hitler after all. So they shipped him back to Germany, just buried him in a forest. But nobody knows. So the only thing left of him is this jawbone. And they've looked at like the dentures and stuff like that. And obviously, because he was supposed to have cyanide poisoning, there is blue deposits on the dentures, which sort of kind of gives credence to that he took cyanide and then, got set on fire, but then they were supposed to be shot. But as I say, there is a lot of things with this particular thing. But when they took the DNA samples from the jawbone, they found that they couldn't establish who the gender was or the dead person's gender. So when you look at the diagnostics of the skull and the diagnostics of the jawbone, it's a 50-50 chance. There's no chance at all. So you can't say, yes, it's a man, yes, it's a woman. It's Ava Braun or it's Hitler. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing. But when they took the jawbone to Hitler's dentist...
Yeah.
The dentist actually went, Mein Führer, that's Hitler's. That I know his teeth anyway. I know those teeth anyway. So it is again, it's a part of a body that they can't corroborate as being definitively Hitler's, but the other story of him being moved around and where he's buried now by the Russians kind of holds water, because I can't see them wanting Germany to get their hands on, Hitler's body, because again it becomes it's like almost like a martyrdom. It will gain support even though he's dead, and we just crushed them. Do you know what I mean? So I can understand why they want to get rid of the body under those circumstances. So the public haven't got anything to focus on as a focal point.
Did they not have part of a skull as well?
Yeah, I think they thought that was Ava Braun's, but it's again, it's a 50-50. They can't. But there's a gunshot. There's a gunshot to that skull fragment. It's a fragment, not a whole skull.
Yeah. I was just looking at the research, and it said that there was a part of a skull with a bullet hole stored in a different location to the jawbone, but from a woman, not particularly Hitler, and it wasn't Eva Braun's either, because she was poisoned rather than shot.
But again,
so they sort of
unless she was on the ground when that happened.
Yeah.
Once they took the cyanide poison, you don't know that you don't know. One of the henchmen, or not henchmen, but the soldiers that were guarding them, might have gone, "You horrible person," and shoot her just for good measure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was. I did watch a documentary about a group of archaeologists that went around looking for wartime artifacts, and they discovered a shallow grave just outside one of the graveyards of a small town, and the story was that towards the end of the war, the Germans were basically making a run for it, got as far as that village, and then were all executed. But they found like 3 bodies of men in the grave, and there was a young woman with a baby as well, and the baby was in there, and they were all shot. So yeah, it's the series only ran for about 3 or 4 episodes, and that was the last one, because the archaeologist people were like, "No, I can't do this anymore," because they were finding such horrific stuff. I think the baby shot was the last straw, sort of thing. But that was towards the end of the war. So I mean, if they were killed, then yeah, I mean, it stands to reason they could have been, they poisoned themselves but then shot afterwards, just double make sure.
But there is whole conspiracies built up, the fact that Hitler survived, that he was witnessed leaving Germany on a secret, tour, and he's in Argentina, or was in Argentina. I think he would be dead by now, but he lived out the rest of his years in Argentina, and there is a whole conspiracy on it, and there always will be, because we have no definitive body of Hitler, because of the secrecy the Russians did in disposing of the body of him. Because there's no definitive body, then we never. That conspiracy will rumble on and on and on, unfortunately. But, makes for good radio shows. Gives us something to talk about.
And, but then even the TV channels as well, because doesn't one of the Sky channels do a TV show called Hitler's Escape?
Or Hunting Hitler.
Isn't
it called Hunting Hitler?
Yeah, something like that, isn't it? That sort of works on the theory that he escaped.
Yeah, they're looking for
him.
And
they're trying to track him.
Or looking for proof that he survived the war. He didn't die in the bunker. Didn't die in the bunker by choice. He was actually whisked away, got away, as they say. But I don't think that's the case. I think he took the best option, disappearing.
Yeah, absolutely. So who else has disappeared that you found out about?
No, I found this one quite funny. And bless him, Charlie Chaplin. I didn't know this either. I found this very humorous. Now, in 1978, Charlie Chaplin's corpse went missing. Now, he spent his last years in a Swiss village called Coursières-sur-Vevey. That's what we're going to go with. Yep, we'll stick with that. And very peaceful, normal life. He weren't a big star. He was just in, the village. He was just another person in the village, right? And, his coffin was dug up and dragged several feet across the earth and put in a vehicle. Now, his wife, Una, received 27 phone calls demanding money. Now, Una was like, not a chance, right? Not a chance.
Hang on. You said that this was a nice, quiet village. In your research, you said they had 8 children.
Yeah, but that means they live with them.
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't be very quiet, would it?
It's not a big town. They're in a small village, so they're living a normal life with their kids. God, if they were all there, that is. Right, but anyway, the fact is, once he died, his body went missing, right? And his wife received these 27 phone calls. She refused to pay, and it was the equivalent of £600,000. That's what the equivalent was. But the criminals, they're not very good criminals, everybody, because they were like, she was like, no, I ain't paying it. They were like, well, will you take, less? How much would you offer? So they were like negotiating for the return of these bodies. Now, this continued and allowed the police time to trace the cause. These guys who nicked this body are not very clever at all, because the police traced the cause, and then basically a 25-year-old Polish refugee was actually arrested in a phone booth. So it actually was a Polish refugee and a Bulgarian who attempted this. But their grand plan,
dear.
This was the funniest bit, their grand plan wasn't actually to nick the body. What they wanted to do was they dug it up, then they were going to dig a bit deeper, put his body in, cover it up with earth, and then leave the grave empty. So it looked like he had disappeared, but they hadn't actually gone anywhere with the body, but they got disturbed whilst they were in the middle of digging. So they had to nick his body rather than do the plan they wanted. And then then they come across Una, who's like, I ain't paying you money. And then they get caught by the police. This is the thing, this is the sort of thing, this is a Charlie Chaplin movie. It is, isn't it? Just see it. I can just see it in my head. But
I'm surprised they haven't made a movie on this. It's definitely worth one.
But yeah, I did chuckle at this one. I really did. That was I thought, bless them. But I will say this. This could be an urban legend, because I couldn't find much verifiable information on this one. So and because it sounds so ludicrous, it does sound like a Charlie Chaplin movie. Part of it makes me question it, and the other half I can kind of see fate having that kind of humour.
Yeah. Maybe it was like the last Charlie Chaplin great laugh. Maybe.
Possibly.
Maybe that's how they see it.
Possibly.
Yeah. It went out with a bang.
Who knows? Who knows? But this kind of has led us down like a little rabbit hole, hasn't it? Because we've got like this is the first of a 3-parter. Because what are we looking at next week?
Next week we're going to look at the body snatchers. And but that's fascinating in itself. I mean, you've got that. Obviously, they're called body snatchers, but what else was it? Sack-em-ups?
Yeah.
And what was the other word?
Resurrectionists.
Resurrectionists, that's it, yeah. So, that's fascinating. And I thought, we could quite easily do that. Obviously, moving on from disappearing, vanishing bodies to people that actually dug them up for different reasons. And yeah, that's a fascinating subject. It's all on its own.
Totally. But just before, we leave this topic, I was shocked at how many people go missing a year.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that came up. And it's not so much missing corpses, but missing people around the world. In America alone, there are currently 900,000 missing cases, files, not solved.
Yep.
Not solved.
I mean, in our third part of these shows, we're going to be talking about the missing 411.
Yeah.
And that is basically hunters going into the woods of national parks and disappearing in mysterious circumstances. Mm-hmm. And some of them have never been found, some of them have, and stuff like that. But that accounts for 120,000 cases of that.
Yeah. And yes, you can explain quite a lot of those, like hikers, that have just not been prepared or have had an accident, or, there are a certain amount that you would be able to account for just general misadventure. But there are some really weird circumstances surrounding them, and that's what makes it interesting.
Absolutely, and we'll be covering those, the mysterious ones, in the Missing 411 in a couple of weeks' time.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about that, and when you was telling me about it, it was quite reminiscent of the Dyatlov Pass.
Yeah, just the American version.
Except there aren't many bodies.
No, I mean the few of them have been discovered. I think one of them, the cases that we're going to be looking at, one woman was found dead, but she was the coroner, and what she died of doesn't tie in. Then another one was just remains, but I mean, yeah, we're going into more details on that show anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very fascinating concept, that one. Really fascinating.
It is.
And it's all magic and mystery, because no one knows unless they're actually there at that moment in time.
Indeed. Yeah. But, yeah, we've nearly come to the end of the show. So what have we got coming up for the following week?
Tomorrow night is Haunted Histories. Penny, I keep saying we. It's like the royal we. It's not me at all. Oh, right. It's Penny. Penny has got Sarah Chumacero in the studio with her, talking all about Harry Houdini.
Oh, that'd be a good one as well, actually.
That's a character we've not discussed before, really. We've mentioned him in passing, but not really looked at his character in depth. So they're talking about him. I
watched a documentary. I think it was his grandson was trying to recreate some of his stunts and his illusions and stuff. And I don't know whether that was like a Netflix or Amazon or one of those streaming services or something. But yeah, I remember that and I watched that. That was quite interesting.
Cool. Well, you'll hear all about it on Wednesday, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Don't forget, everybody. Excellent. Then on Thursday evening on the Parasearch Radio show, hopefully Carl will be back in the house. Hopefully he'll get out of traffic earlier. Because him and Sam have got Coyote, I love this name, Coyote Christopher Sutton in the studio with them. That is such a name, isn't it? How awesome is that name?
It is, it's good, yeah.
That's like a proper name, that is. And then on Friday evening, the Dark Mirror show is, we're talking about the gin.
Okay, cool. That'd be a good one.
Well, you never guess, though. I have actually found an alien link.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be fair.
I have. I actually found it. I was like, I found the alien link. I found it. But I'm not going to go down that route, obviously, because that's not what I want to talk about. But the boys will find it and talk about it anyway, so,
Yeah. Do a bit of research and watch, was it the Wishmaster movies? That's about the gin.
Okay. Kind of going with reading the Quran myself, but, Because there is a book of the jinn in the Quran.
Awesome.
So we're actually exploring a different religion to upset.
Cool. No, that's fine.
We're leaving Christianity alone this week, and we're annoying the Islamics instead.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Maybe not.
Well, just before the show.
Fascinating topic, though, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do agree. I've always had a fascination with the jinn, so it'd be good to listen to that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. That's all we've got time for, everybody. So, thanks everyone in the chat room. And thank you, Kerry, for joining me, as always.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, that's a good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.